know, 7 out of 10 Americans think, you know, toothbrushes. Yeah. Anyway.
Basically, what you're saying is nobody's seeing what's coming.
No, actually, I know what's coming, and nobody has. There are a lot of theories that I see floating around and stuff, and that's a great way to pass time. Uh, but I do know what's coming, and you're not going to expect it.
Real quick on the December reveal, I know that that's going to be sometime in December. You can't say what it is, obviously, but if you could just give us an idea of where will our jaws be on the floor, I guess is what I'd say.
Um, I actually don't have any. Um, there was a certain point in Safemoon where we had dropped the idea of giving dates entirely. But then also there's, of course, we love the hints and stuff. So a lot of the hints and previous projections kind of like made it into the marketing. Oh, I'm dropping stuff. That's what I get. Um,
All good, man.
um, a lot of those older dates made it in there. If if they're, you know, I'm not gonna blow up Easter eggs. So, like, to be honest with you, since now that I'm not in always like direct contact, like before, I could just reach out to someone and say, "Hey, what's up with this picture that I saw?" Because mostly I was focused on the tech and stuff. I don't really have to do with dates or any kind of marketing, or well, previously, I guess. It's transition for me, and I have to frame it a different way. um, yeah, so I have no idea what's coming up in December. I'm sure things have shifted a little bit with the restructure, but that's bound to happen. Don't be surprised if things change a little bit now that things have changed a little bit. You know,
I guess what I would reference with you would be the phone call that you said changed the world in that tweet.
it
I
did.
think that was something I believe that 1,000%. Is that something we'll find out in December about? I believe before you said we would. If that's changed, if you could just let us know.
There is a huge potentiality for that phone call to change how um, people see Satan in general. Um, but this also applies for a lot of other DeFi things. So when you say, change the world, it's not just for one sliver of it. You're changing the whole world. You're doing something for history, for legacy. You're doing something bigger than anyone's ever done before. Um, Now, yeah, there's a definite potential for safe move within that, and John and I would have to talk about that. Actually, we did talk about it once before, so yeah, I can't really talk about it just yet. In a few days, I'll be announcing what that is with my 100K video. I wanted to wait until a lot of the third parties were cool with me breaking an NDA or kind of like a person to person trust thing where I would come to the public and say, hey, I'm advising these projects and stuff. And I'm building this one extra thing. A lot of people speculated as to whether I would join up with Hank and some other guys and do something that, you know, this is woefully unexpected. Also, um, this is brand new, and it's. I think you'll all be very excited because it comes without strings, and that's the best kind of benefit anyone could ever ask for. That's yeah.
So Thomas, did after the interview, did you and Tech just like start having conversation, and then like you started seeing that you both had the same vision, or what? Can you kind of talk
Um,
about
yeah,
that?
sure. So after the Goldstein talk, Tech was there. We DM'd a little bit, started calling. He's a bright guy. He has a really cool future. Like, you know, I made a TikTok video thanking everyone leading up to this a while ago. Um, and when I said, building a team of wizards before, uh, that is the best possible strategy for anyone. Is you want to find people that they don't even have to be perfect, right? I, I I love it even more if they're not. Um, but it's the enthusiasm. It's loving what you do. So that kind of struck me a little bit, and I wanted to make sure that going out into the space that I would choose projects that were not high cap, that had potential, that had a leader that was enthusiastic about what they did, um, and I'll continue to do that. Actually, back in the day, a lot of the people that I'm reaching out to now and asking about their projects were prominent Safemoon moderators and things like that that had left and made supporting projects or word vomit facilitated the community in some way. Um, yeah,
Yeah, we're just really interested to see what you're going to do for DeFi as a whole, right? Like, I know that's always been your mission. Uh, Obviously, you worked with SafeMoon, but DeFi as a whole is really what you've been talking about lately, right?
yeah. What's weird is that when I started out in DeFi, when I first started hearing about it, I was extremely resistant to it because when I heard about people getting wrecked farming hot dog tokens, I couldn't get over that. I was like, why do people do this shit at all? It's horrible. I come from an older time where ICOs, STOs, all the rage, and then you have your um, IEOs, things like that, the initial exchange offerings versus the security token ones and the initial coin ones. The weird thing about ICOs, it was a much more difficult game because not only did you need to provide like you didn't actually need to market make your own project back then, and some of them actually grew on their own, um, which was it's really cool to see. But you need a lot of volume for that to pretend to work. So if you don't provide liquidity with an initial raise, and when you go and get so you go ICO and then you go to your exchanges, and you kind of want to hope to God that back then you had a utility that was acceptable, and that's somewhat of a gray area, and the SEC decides what's what. Um, Going into tokens, though, it's a completely different game. And as soon as I figured out about AMMs and the Uniswap and how all of that worked, um, it shocked me, right? So going from ICOs, and not even just as an investor, but as a person that built those systems for accepting the tokens, getting the KYC information, staying compliant, actually, making the reporting and getting a response back. Um, it's a very different game. But then with DeFi now, I'm very excited about it. Uh, I ended up, uh, what I did, I created a stablecoin generator for the Asian market a few years ago. Uh, or well, I didn't create it directly, right? There's always a team too. And I don't want to discredit any team. So um, yeah, no, I'm extremely excited. It's a DeFi is these tokens, these assets are very different than from it's so much such higher velocity, so much more engagement. It's so much more. Uh, it's compressed crypto from compressed ancient crypto, right? We had a lot of hype in 2017, right? That is nothing compared to today. So
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
that's my rant. Sorry.
No, it's good, man. You're good. Uh, Obviously, you've had a long career. You've worked on things a lot. It, in terms of the blockchain with SafeMoon that you worked on, is that one of the things that you've put the most hours ever into? I mean, how would you characterize that?
I think I put the most hours into early Safemoon, leading up to the first event in April. I was working every single day, no breaks. Like I worked for what was it, April to I don't know. It was like 90 days straight or something like that. I took no breaks.
Wow.
But it's just 90 days. I look back on that. It's like, okay, it was a few months. Um, but later on down the road, I had some family issues. I cut my hours down. A couple weeks later, my soon-to-be stepfather, um, he recovered from his surgery, so we just got right back into the work. As it turns out, transitioning from CTO over to CBO, um, there's still just as much shit to do as as a CBO as there is a CTO. Um, so as a CTO, you're responsible for the stack and everything that goes into it, all of the technology decisions, including blockchain in a way. But then on the blockchain side, as a CBO, you're responsible for all of the blockchain decisions. So I would, instead of getting involved with how the interface of the app worked, I had a lot to do with the API and how the API returned data from an RPC server back to the app, or maybe as a third-party service, that sort of thing, and trying to explain that to the teams and bringing people on that were enthusiastic was one of our big goals. And then it's not like you can just go to like not to talk smack on any of the Harvard and MIT courses on blockchains. It's like, guys, like, you're not building for Web3. You're not building for consumers. You're teaching people about what ledgers are, network effect, and the value in networking. And okay, that's fine and good, but you're not teaching dApps. And maybe some classes are now. I don't hold a lot of faith in that. But what you can do is you can take a developer that's within that realm, that knows the stack, and just give them this concept. It's just a separate set of patterns and a separate set of thinking. You don't make a lot of binary calls to encrypted smart contracts in any other spot in tech. It just doesn't really happen. Um, going to be a photographer for that, I guess. Anyway,
Yeah, real quick. So somebody brought up the point tonight that you finished the test net on the blockchain, that it's not mainnet yet. I said it wasn't a concern. You had been on here before. I asked you your second favorite part of the blockchain. You said it works. You emphasized that.
yeah.
We laughed about that, right? You said it works. That's what matters. It works. So, if you could just let everybody know, I said it's not a concern at all that it hasn't gone mainnet yet. I think you would agree with that if you
Well,
don't mind.
okay. Sure. So a testnet is where you can compile some code without, it's not like I wanted to go to Ropsten and share with everyone all of my fumbles. Anyone's going to be testing things along the way. I must have deployed like 50 different versions of the contract with different tweaks just to make sure that I was doing it right at the unit tests. So I deployed a Papa testnet on a tweaked. I really shouldn't share too much about it, right? Because I want to allow John to um, take what I've left there and put his spice on it, right? Because I'm not there anymore, and all I can do is provide advice, right? Um, but so what's there now is the perfect environment to be testing the V2, but not only just testing the V2, but deploying an AMM, deploying the contract that then creates a liquidity pool with the primary token, which is already predefined to a certain address as perfect testing environment. So, and when I speak testnet, this is an actual block. It's an actual blockchain. Any of those mechanics are subject to change now that I'm not there. And John has the funding, the opportunity, and the will to find someone that can understand what I've put there or understand John's ideas and then put them in a code that people can run. A blockchain is totally different than just a token. The mechanics are so different because you're talking about getting networked peers to agree to come to consensus on something. And that varies from chain to chain. And really, at that point, it's like, pick your poison. How would you like to verify these transactions? Would you like to be eco-friendly or not? So, somewhat limiting. So I think the future of Safemoon is predicated on these next decisions. What's going on right now is probably one of the most pivotal. It's easily one of the most pivotal times in Safemoon's history. Whatever comes next it's going to be interesting to watch, and I'm going to be here for it. And when the blockchain comes out, I'm going to release a Papa token on it.
All right, yeah.
Let's go.
You and John
Nice.
still talk though. I mean, right? Like you've said that in the past. I mean, you guys still stay in communication, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been leaving him alone, but I've let him know that I'm always here. It's no big deal. When I stepped out, I said this is the most amicable thing ever. Um, but it's time for me. And he was cool with that. We did the final transfer of the actual LP wallet. So the Unicrypt locked LP is all of the LP is in Safemoon's hands. I gave them some advice on how to do all that. Yeah, so everything's all good. Open channel, nothing
Yeah,
bad.
if they needed like your advice on something, I'm sure you would be there, right?
Oh fuck yeah, man! Like, don't even worry about that. If John if he's got my number, he can text me. I've got him saved in
That was more for our listeners than for me. But notice he said fuck yeah. He didn't just say yeah. So
Yeah, it's all good.
Migo, did you have a question for Papa? He met you
Yeah. Hey,
in
Thomas,
Miami.
I had a quick question. Can you share any details or information on IoT in the Safemoon atmosphere?
No.
You laugh at that one, huh?
That's a good question to ask. That was a great question. Macro IoT is interesting when you're looking at discussing with nation states. How not to get me in trouble with questions.
That's why I asked any details that you can talk about. I'll
Right.
take that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
I know it's hard because you got to think of everything and then think what you can share. So I know it's not easy.
Yeah, and also being aware of so I'm aware of what the goals are up to when I left. So any kind of changes or any kind of pivoting, I I don't want to get in the way of any pivoting because like when someone leaves an organization, it can have an effect. People have to adjust. So I'm gonna leave that one for John.
Understand, man. Understand. It's probably
Thank you.
safest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all good. Let's go to Addict. Did you have a question? Or let's go to Spartan. Go ahead, Spartan. Do you have a question for Papa?
I do. First of all, Papa, Thomas, man, I've never spoken to you in person, but by all means, I love your heart. I love your heart for people. Kudos to you, man. I respect you a lot. So every time I hear you speak, I get more bullish on Safemoon. And I think it's incredible, and you're an incredible asset to the Safemoon community and to the Safemoon team. And I thank you for everything you've done so far, man. Much respect to you. Um,
Thank you.
no worries. My question to you is again, I don't know how much you can divulge if you even have any idea on it. Is regarding the metaverse. What can you what can you
Oh,
okay? What can you divulge in terms of Safemoon's direction or directives in terms of the metaverse?
actually, that's something that we never discussed when I was there. Um,
Shoot.
I'd love to help in that way. I've got a lot of cool ideas, but um, it's bound to be huge. I'm sure everyone will hear about whatever they do with regards to whatever stuff.
I
Any,
can't
any
even
oh,
imagine.
sorry.
It's got to be big, man.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if there are any concepts or ideas you'd have that you think would even, probably could be appropriated by SafeMoon to, like in terms of in connection with the metaverse. How would you go about it? Let me ask that question.
So I think that in a lot of ways, metaverses are limiting, in that you'd need a VR headset or even a browser, right, for you to experience what's going on inside of it. Um, I see some cool stuff about like uh, geolocations and stuff like that. Doing stuff with AR is kind of neat, but AR glasses have not come along enough yet. Um, so when I think metaverse, I think in a lot of ways Second Life. And it's weird because just now, and I'm only bringing it up because I saw people talking about it on Twitter, but I always wonder why no one ever spoke about this. um, when you have a large world of engaged users, which is essentially this is we're talking about a subset of people. You have SafeMoon holders that are also gamers, or SafeMoon holders who are also Oculus or other VR headset owners. Um, so I think that in a way, metaverses are a really cool way to display NFTs and engage with NFTs, to have cross-platform or cross-chain environments uh, on the second layer. I mean, that's kind of like a boring doomsday FUD thinking. But also, metaverses can be very positive because you're bringing back cons. You're bringing brands back together. You're bringing art back back into everybody's the forefront of thinking. So, if SafeMoon's trying to be next level, having a metaverse is not unlike having a Minecraft server where you're testing out new concepts and new financial ideas. That was the whole point behind Minecraft, was to test out some contract functions and test out communities' reaction to things in an environment that was not the sum of the whole. Instead, it was just a subset. People who kind of do some A/B testing. But this is not unlike anything any other enterprise organization would do.
I'll get to Jeremiah in just a second. I got a question from one of my listeners, Papa. I think I already know the answer to this, but I want to hear your take. He said, could you ask Papa how he compares the SafeMoon blockchain to some of the top blockchain enabled technologies that are currently on the market?
Level. So I'm going to be real with you guys. When you approach any product and you have gigantic billion-dollar sized competitors, right? And if you only have what 20-40 million dollars liquid, depending on the day, honestly, you have a lot of challenges. So, with regard to the testnet, what it needed to be was on par. It had to match the capabilities of smart chains. It had to run Solidity. And it also had to run on my computer. So that's another big thing. Uh, yeah, where I would say where I left it when I said that I was comfortable when I left. That that's the launch pad. That's the clean slate. That's the clay that you can use to add any mechanic, any kind of thing you would like to add to the blockchain is all right there, right inside the Genesis file, right inside what you're, you know, there's a config for this. You can modify the code before you compile it. But when I ran it, that's what I built the V2 on. V2 in a way that's compatible with Sapien's current environment. So it's kind of weird, right, when you think about everything. A lot of people have a lot of expectations. When I said I had a blockchain, I had one. Now, here's the thing, though, is that there's a lot of opportunity there. I always knew that there would be a certain point where, with all of the different factors I spoke about before, I'm not going to get into now, that I decided to step out. Yeah, it's just kind of, the more
Yeah,
I think about it, the more it sucks. not
sure.
not in like a fun way, like for me it's tragic. Like I left a situation that I helped build, Um, so but I'm here now inside the community. It's a very different kind of thing that I'm getting used to. So I'm in a lot more spaces and a lot more kind of hanging out. But anyway, so blockchain stuff. The answer to that question is, where does it stand next to everybody else? It's as operable as anything else. And it ran the V2 contract that I built. It's in the Safemoon GitHub. It's private. I don't know if me saying that right now is going to be the reason why it makes it public and be the reason why they shift direction or whatever. I mean, the point was that I provided a clean slate, before I left. I gave them the best opportunity to do the thing that John wanted to do. So
That's awesome, man. Very revealing. Jeremiah's got a question for you. Guys, if you have a question, please put your hands up just so I can know who our speakers are that have questions, please. Jeremiah, go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? What's going on, Papa? What's going on,
hey man,
Chris?
how are you?
Good, man. How about yourself? Hey,
Good.
hey, we still waiting for you to come out, hang out with us. For people who don't know who I am, I'm Jeremiah, host of Safemoon water cooler in the morning. However, I do have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
So, do you know what dark moon is?
Yes.
And okay, and how important is Dark Moon once that's revealed? How important is Dark Moon for Safe Moon itself? And are we even scratching the surface?
I mean, so the question isn't really how important is Dark Moon for Safe Moon, but
Okay.
rather how important is Dark Moon for Earth.
Mm.
I
Wow.
mean,
Mm.
that's
That's a hell
that's
of a
one of those
statement.
things that when you're provided research papers on certain things that have been done, and these guys are absolute. When it comes to traditional science advancement in that way, what they're looking at, had a bunch to do with that. Well, not the science part either. That I'm a software guy. Okay, I'm a degenerate coder. So um, I I know what they're doing, and I've provided a lot of ideas on how this can go to market, the different ways that it can be used. I'm not going to say what they're up to, but yes, Dark Moon's if they execute on the primary goal of what I know they're trying to do, it'll be huge.
Mm. Okay. Awesome.
Damn. Okay.
Okay. I know y'all making fun because I said I'm really I'm they're making fun of me because I'm saying, but you know what? It's so interesting to me, what SafeMoon is doing and how they've been working on this thing for the last few years. We have no idea what it is. So I mean, just to get down to the meat and potatoes of it, it is to me it's interesting and it's exciting. So I'm gonna let someone else ask a question, but I appreciate it, Papa. Thank you so much, and
No problem.
I'll
Pop,
be here listening.
I know you can't disclose things that are secret and under NDA, but if I could just ask for your reaction about some of the things you saw, if you could just give me your reaction in general, if you don't mind.
Oh, with Dark Moon or
Just things that we haven't found out yet about Safemoon. Just your general reaction to it.
I have had emergency calls in the middle of the night and not for a disaster. Um, the kind of hype that keep you up, like that you are happy to lose sleep about. That was my reaction for a while. To some other stuff, it's kind of like excitement and dread because there's going to be a lot of work. That comes with anything, though. Um, yeah, no, there's so I try to take a pretty straightforward approach with any kind of like software problem. Um, I try not to get too hyped, but I have a problem with that. So that's why I focus. I
Well,
don't know.
when it gets to a certain level, how can you not be hyped, right?
Well, right, of course. But I'll give you a couple of scenarios where I wasn't hyped. Trevor's one of my best friends. That was hard for me. Uh, I became great friends with Hank. That was also very hard. Uh, I also liked Jack a lot. I didn't understand why Jack left at all. Um, but I've spoken to him a couple times afterwards, and now so, a lot of things. So you're going to have your positives and negatives with anything. Um, yeah, like I can't compare what I do to somebody who works at a gas station or at a restaurant as a chef or a dishwasher, right? I did that when I was younger. Like what I'm doing now, I do with far less bullshit for far more money than most people, so I can't really complain, right? But there's how I react to things is you have situations where it's just ungodly hype, just insane hype. Like I've never seen this kind of shit before in crypto ever. Um, but also, and that's an awesome thing. Um, at the same time, there are situations the cost of success is high. It's very high. Yeah.
Yeah, just a lot of pressure and just a lot to deal with, I guess, on a personal level, right? Outside of work.
Ooh, yeah, for sure, dude. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, let me go to Waffle. He's got his hand up. He's got a question for you. Go ahead, Waffle.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Okay, so it's my first time to actually get to talk to Papa himself. So I have
Oh,
my question. Been thinking outside the box a little bit here about on V2 and the blacklist function. Is that a strategic way of SafeMoon's ability to be listed on exchanges for us to provide security to
it
those people?
so actually interesting. I think it's cool that you brought this up. And something this is a place where I can make some input and speculation as a community member, right?
Yeah.
Um, cool opportunity. So the blacklist function that I had implemented and talked about before, the purpose of that is to make a good faith effort in the vision of regulation. So we need these tools in place so that if we do, if let's be real, like Safemoon is a centralized entity that is a tech company, and it does have to, in order to exist, abide by regulation in the jurisdiction that it exists. So you need to make a good faith effort with where it exists to prevent fraud and prevent malfeasance. So if we've had so many situations with hackers and shit, that there's so many people that we could have just helped, and so many people that were front run, right? That if we had just blacklisted those coins or whatever, we'd be like, look, we can't return it because we don't have a function for that. And if we did have a function for that, people would see that in the CertIC audit and they'd scream at us. So that's not a possibility. But what we can do is turn addresses off. This stuff is on the blockchain. It's auditable. We're beholden to the government. And if that function is used in a way that is not, this is the gray area, right? If that function that is created that has never been regulated, right? If it's used in a way that hurts people, it opens up Safemoon to liability. And you're going to find that John is very risk adverse. He's going to try to minimize that risk as much as possible. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I seen it as an opportunity of partnerships, like whether it be like a pairing or something like that.
And that can help. That can help with certain situations, like if that's something that Coinbase needs. At the end of the day, like it's really no problem to just add a blacklist, because you're just making a check. You're making a check against a list to see if an address is in there, and if it's not, then you're all good. If it's there, that's where you return. You don't even send the tokens.
Hell yeah, yeah. Well, hey, thanks for that, man. I just wanted to say appreciate it. I was in here one night. I heard me and you, man, we share kind of the same childhood in a way. So I'm glad you came up in the world and doing what you're doing. So keep on doing it, man.
Thank you very much. The other half of that, what you're asking though, is this is kind of where I'm coming in, as speculation from the community, right? It leaked what the Safemoon address, like the V2 is. When you check the verified contract source behind the proxy, it's not the same code that I provided. So I can't speak to whether a blacklist exists in the V2. So I have to put that there. I'm not trying to fight random, and if they have it, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I kind of said. The leak, because technically that contract's still on testnet, so it wouldn't be on the mainnet, anyways, right?
Well, yeah, the version that I put out was on a testnet that worked on my computer with OneNote. So you guys wouldn't find my version of it. It's currently hanging out on GitHub. Yeah, it's in a private repo. So if they use it, awesome. If they don't, I hope they mitigate these circumstances that we discuss here with the blacklist.
Sure.
There's a lot of other things with the contract too that I.
Real quick, Papa, this is a question for you from one of our listeners. This is speculation, so I'm not saying like this is the case or not the case. A lot of people have made of the fact that John Caroni has a security clearance. One of our listeners wanted to know if you have a security clearance as well.
If I did, I wouldn't be able to answer that question.
Which is perfectly fine. So I just had to ask the question. I didn't think you'd be offended because
No,
you've been
I'm
on
not
here
offended.
before. You've been on here before with me for a couple hours. We've talked in DMs, so you and I have a good relationship. I just wanted to ask that question for the community, if you didn't mind.
Yeah,
All
no
right.
problem.
Okay, cool. The next question one of our listeners was asking us is, do you think the community reads too much into clues with these pictures and some of the stuff that Safemoon put out in the past?
No, actually, you guys missed so much. And I said that before, like months ago. That's by
Damn. Wow.
design. It's by design. Um, it's Easter eggs are part of the marketing. Um, yeah. Not to send you off on a frenzy, but I'm telling you, like, not only do you have fun with this, we have fun with this watching the theories. And sometimes people have such wild theories that could work. And
Yeah,
hey,
the engagement on that was insane.
yeah, of course.
Do you ever do you ever get to the point, and this is me asking this, do you ever get to the point where you have people that believe in this so heavily, and rightfully so, and they know what's going to come in the future and that we're going to be successful, and do you ever get to the point where when you know so much about what's going to happen, where you just wish you could just like, guys, this is what's going to happen, like, relax, it's going to take off? I mean, did you ever get to that point where you just felt like you could just wish like you could tell people and just have them just relax?
Um, what's weird is I want to say no to that, actually. Um, after you do it so many times, for devs, the rules become clear and you become super comfortable with them. I totally know a bunch of the shit that's coming out. And I want to see it happen. But I'm not gonna share it.
Of course, I get it. Here's a good
Yeah.
question for you. You
It's
said
actually, that previous question was awesome because it I've thought about it before, but at the end of the day, it took me a little bit to realize, but to be honest with you, it's the release schedule. It's the popping your own psychological bubble, right? It's kind of like leading up to Christmas. You don't know what you're gonna get. You're not gonna open everything up as an adult before everybody gets to open it up. These are gifts and stuff. I'm not gonna ruin that for you.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. So here's a question that's good for you. You said in the past when you went to Puerto Rico, it wasn't for a vacation.
That's right.
One of my
No, it
one of
wasn't.
my listeners wanted to ask you. He said, uh, "Was Puerto Rico a strategic move to get into because it is a U.S. territory?"
No, it actually had nothing to do with the territory part. And there's no tax benefit that, from what I understand, Safemoon is going after with regard to Puerto Rico. I think there's a lot of speculation with that. But it's been no secret that I've been attracted to large crypto communities, one of which resides in Puerto Rico, and I wanted to meet some old friends that I had over there. Um, but then beyond that, on the business side, right? And these are not just any old friends. I wouldn't normally know anyone in Puerto Rico if it weren't for the crypto Facebook groups. Um, and that's how I figured out about I found out about Brock Pierce's movement, the crypto monastery he has over there, and I've got a large group of friends there that operate out of PR. So I went there looking for opportunities. I came out with one, but one that didn't necessarily align fully with Safemoon, which could in the end. And it depends on how it plays out. So what I ended up doing was I went down there. I heard out a deal, um, brought it to John, um, and we figured out, without giving out any details or anything like that, that there could be some synergy to this word vomit. Here we go. There could be some synergy there down the road. So I'm still working that angle. I'm going to do a gigantic announcement. Some people already figured it out. Some people, I'm sure, are holders that work for the organization that I'm thinking of going public with. But it's a very interesting all around thing. But at the end of the day, it's non-conflicting safely. However, it could allow you to buy a home with it. So we'll see.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Let's go to Jeremiah. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
All right, thanks again. I got a question for you, Thomas. So 32. Is it possible you could speak a little bit? What does what exactly 32 mean? And also, like we seen, this rocket with Elon Musk go up with the number 32 on it too as well. Did we put satellites up there? Is there any correlation with that? Like we put this to bed or?
All right. So 32. I'll start from the beginning. 32. It's an old joke within the community. There was some bot that just kept buying flat 32. Like you can play out your gas so you can get a perfect amount. It's just like 32 Safemoon, from time to time. But then they fuck up and it would be like 32 plus a float number afterwards. And anyway, yeah, that's really what that was. So it would be constant 32 buys. And 32 is such a small amount of Safemoon that it's like, why are you doing that? You're spending more money in gas than you are on the Safemoon. So ever since, we would tag 32 in the chats and people will go wild. I'm not sure of the origin, who ran the bot, whatever. I'm sure we'll find out someday. They're legendary in their own right. I have no fucking idea what they were doing with 32 bot. Or why 32? Or is it just rule 32? Because that's a whole part of the internet that we shouldn't get into today. Yeah. But anyway, that's where 32 came from.
Okay.
And with the rocket, this is the first time I'm hearing about it, like a 32 on a rocket. So that's a weird consequence of us giving out too many Easter eggs, is that everything becomes this conspiracy theory. But I don't think there's anything to do there. But that's my own. Hey, I'm part of the community now. If there is something to do with some rocket, I haven't heard about it.
It's a V2 rocket too.
Right. It had V2 and everything in there. So I mean, it was just
Okay.
too big of a
I can
coincidence.
see it. Okay. Yeah.
Real quick, I got a couple really good questions for Thomas that our listeners sent me, if you don't mind. First one is Thomas. Somebody asked us, with Binance going from 17 cents to floating around $600 in a span of almost 5 years, how confident are you in Safemoon reaching the realm of 100 plus in that same span of time?
So does Safemoon have more holders than Binance does? Is the real question. And if so, how long is it with the deflationary nature of the token before you have the same supply or less than what Binance does? And if you have a greater supply, or sorry, a greater disparity between that supply as you reduce further down, how much further away on the user scale can you be from Binance? Correct. And $600 per Safemoon is fucking awesome. I don't think that'll happen. And the reason I say that mathematically, it's like this is a classic. Like you would need all of the housing market to be in Safemoon. Some crazy shit like that for that to even remotely happen. But at the same time, if you have 21 million Safemoon and 800 million followers or holders, and you treat to what 1/3 of the entire market share for all of crypto. What else can you do? Can you hit 100K? Can you hit 1 million? Who knows, right? But as of now, we have far too much supply for that even to remotely be a possibility. That's I don't want to give a number target for what I think that Safemoon could be. There's a consolidation happening, so it's going to change the game a little bit. Volume will be out of whack for a while. Think of it like a storm. The storm before the calm, right? Calm before the storm. Normally, it's definitely the opposite here. Any migration of this size will be tumultuous. People will receive out of whack reflections until everyone migrates, and everyone needs to migrate in order to be supported or to lose their whatever they've got. And there's a lot of dusted wallets too. The Safemoon is when you leave a wallet, you're still a holder in a way, unless you clear your wallet or you have to do 2 transactions like back to back and calculate exactly how much you're going to have based off of the first transaction, what your reflections will be in that moment. It's very difficult to pull off. There's a lot of volume. I forgot what I was talking about.
Well, we were just saying, like, I don't think he was saying that Safemoon would ever be $600. He was just saying that with the trajectory of Binance in 5 years, could you see Safemoon being $100 during that same 5 years period?
Oh, okay. So if Safemoon has the potential to reach $1, you would have to obviously reducing supply would have to happen along the way, but with more users, that's going to happen. More users, more volume. Would it reach $100 with the supply that it has, even after the consolidation? No, because there's just simply too many. But as time goes on, if the burn is kept up, maybe, yeah, you would have to seriously burn a lot of supply or remove it from the market. And for a long time, we hinted at doing this consolidation to make it simpler for people, kind of change the values that people were playing with in their heads. And right now, I got very used to, personally, I got used to billions and trillions and quadrillions, quintillions, shit like that. That I can just I look at these commas and they don't bother me anymore. So for me, it's a little weird going back to cents, but cents is what most people who come into a project need to be able to understand. So I personally feel like $100 is unrealistic, even in 5 years, unless another consolidation happens.
Do you think that could happen, or do you think no?
Could it happen? Yeah, I mean, if the first consolidation can happen, another one could. But
Sure.
that's just possibility. That's not a reality. It's
Sure.
gambler's fallacy, right? It's like we know it's possible. It might not happen.
Sure. Yeah. Next question was, if Ryan the Fudhound says he only knows about 15% of what's going on, what would you estimate your percentage of what you know is at?
Oh, as of when I left, so I think I had a much greater understanding through October, but through November, I kind of like scaled back communications and kind of like really kept up with John. So I have a fair understanding of what the future has. Um, I know what Darkmoon's up to. Uh, I know about the progress of the blockchain. I know about hires. Uh, I don't. I mean, it wouldn't be fair for me to even try to put percent on it because I don't know. I have no idea how much things have changed. Uh, but when I was there, all of it.
Strong. It's a strong statement. Spartan, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh man, all my questions are pretty much answered. but Papa, regarding just back to Ryan and the 15% and versus you knowing all. Like I'm I'm gonna bust your bubble a little bit. Can you give
Sure.
us an idea, or just any insight into what the rest of that? Because we as the community only know the 15% that Ryan knows, and you obviously know a lot more. But can you give us just even in retrospect a perspective of what the other 85% entails? Just
Yeah, I can speak in vagaries. Uh, so um, oh, governance, um, KYC, AML, uh, future regulatory patterns, risks with the current contract, risks with the V2, risks in deployment, business plans regarding Darkmoon, telecommunications, beyond Big IP, beyond DNS. I know about the windmills. I know about the Gambia. Um, I know everything leading up to the Gambia. I know about the teams behind all of the iterations of the app. I know about all of the code that went into it. Um, I know about the process. I know why Ryan doesn't have 100% of the information. Is I told John about what Compact did, where you would compartmentalize your department such that people do not understand what it is that they're working on fully, such that when the product fully comes together, you can reduce leaks. And it was very effective back then. I think that was like a strategy well before its time. Um, but there was a certain point where my effort with the blockchain, John told me directly, don't tell Ryan about this because he's too busy. He at the time was very inundated with the law. So also I didn't want to bother him with the shit that I was working on because he didn't even need to know at that point. So working with a need to know is helpful. It helps people move faster because people aren't bogged down with shit they like don't need to think about at all.
Makes
So,
sense. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's how you do it too. Back in the day, I'm a chef, and back in the day, I had some recipes, and I didn't want anybody to know my recipe, so I sent it to three different factories, and then and that way, none of them had the full recipe. So yeah, that is how you do it.
Thomas. Lastly, oh sorry, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
Lastly, for your video, your 100K video, pretty sure the community is pressing in on this as well.
Yeah.
What, how, I can't ask how much you're gonna divulge, but I know, from hearsay, I know you're working on, figuring out what you can and cannot say. How, I'm trying to phrase the questions general, but how big of a deal, as well as, do you have a timeline if you haven't given it yet of when you think you're gonna drop that?
Mm, sometime this weekend. I know I said Monday, right? But then I had this vote with another project who I'm not going to show anything tonight. Anything but Safemoon, guys, right? So I'm going to advise for some projects, and I wanted to make sure that I could talk about it in that video because a lot of these people that are in these videos, and um, one or two of them, three of them, are are from the basically from the present to the future. So my 100K video is a thank you to the 8 years that I spent on Twitter, um, stuck at 300 followers, and the meteoric rise to 10K, and the following, um, and all of the projects that led up to that point. I wanted to show everyone kind of like a thank you for, and it's not just safe with you, right? Because I wouldn't be able to provide you guys the things that I could if it weren't for these other projects, the successes and the failures. I want to talk about everything. Um, and then I've got some cool videos and clips and stuff. I mentioned a lot about the trending stuff. I keep adding more to this because I feel like this 100K on Twitter is so hard to achieve. Very, very, very few people ever do this. Like YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok, right? For example, it's a lot easier to get to 100K on Facebook, right? Because your audience can be that much larger if you understand evergreen content and marketing and how each one first.
You want the super hard one first?
Yeah.
You sure? Okay. All right. No problem. So listen, so what would you say to the Safemoon Army, to those in the Safemoon Army who feel that the people, some of the people, not all, just some of the people, and I'm being honest, this is literally a question I just got as well. That feel that some of the people maybe that you might be doing business with at this point might be fudders, or again
Okay.
related.
Yeah.
Because okay, let's talk about
Yeah. Totally understand. So one of the things that I told everybody that I was here for was DeFi. I don't care if people hate me. And I understand if there's a lot of FUD and a lot of craziness going on. But what I revolve around are wrinkles. So there are some projects in the space that have wrinkles behind them. And I'm a big fan of that, So it's no secret. I'm going to help advise tech. There's a lot of people in this community that don't necessarily like it. I fully understand that, right? But at a certain point, you're just going to let the haters talk, right? Because it's non-consequential. I'm going to be here. I'm going to build anyway, and this is just talk. So what I would advise anyone to do is don't listen to the talk, right? It's about what can we do for the community, and this is about lifting everyone up. It's not gatekeeping, Just because someone doesn't like me doesn't mean that they shouldn't have the opportunity to succeed in some way. So that yeah, I mean, if I'm going to put a reason behind lifting up even haters, right? It's about lifting up people, and that's what I want to do. I don't want to see people who don't. Maybe there's some regulatory standpoint that I've noticed from years ago that maybe some of these guys didn't pick up. It's not their fault. I'm going to help these guys out. I'm going to help them write the course or hook them up with marketing opportunities. And that way we can get back to being a single unit. Because if we fuck around with all of this drama and all this nonsense that's going on, right? Even John said it, right? The stuff that's going on between me and Futters means nothing for safety because it means nothing, actually, to me in the first place. So I'm only doing it because people need to, like on my perspective, I'm handling some stuff within the community that people can't just flood projects and stuff. It's nonsense, right? Part of it is I'm gonna sue the shit out of some guy just because he begged me to, and then the other part of that is we're gonna lift people up who have misunderstandings. We're gonna lift them up, and then we're all gonna ride together, like I said. Because that's what I'm here. Like, we gotta move this shit forward. Like, fuck all this other stuff. So that's what I would say. It's let the haters talk. We are gonna do us anyway. So
Yeah. And that's facts. And I understand what you mean when you say you hear from DeFi. And, I understand the big picture where it's kind of like beyond Safemoon. It's about leaving your name, your legacy on the wall of DeFi itself long after you're gone. And, in my opinion, that's how I feel, how I took that. Um, so, um, but again, that's just a question I had to ask. I think a lot of us was thinking about too as well. For those who didn't message me about that, but that's it's something that I had to ask you. My other question is, it comes from a listener. He wants to know specifically not the exchange, but the blockchain itself. How fast can it process transactions in a second? In a second or a moment?
okay. Okay. Um, all right. So this is born of some conversations that we were having ages ago with an exchange, and I brought up a benchmark when I said 3,000 transactions per second, and I'm sure, or sorry, not per second, simultaneously.
Right.
Now, simultaneously, you could have many sets of that happen per second.
That's right.
So the benchmark does not represent a time scale, but that benchmark was for an exchange. And I worry that a lot of people that heard me speak about that, and this was months and months ago, and John and I, like the whole team has gotten up and spoken about this, in that the blockchain itself is not designed for that, right? So we have to bring it way back into the realm of realism, where 3,000 transactions cleared simultaneously is something more like Visa or like a trend, like a actual fintech centralized system, which is what exchange is. The blockchain itself can clear something like 13 and a half transactions a second. But that's only based off of, and this is not benchmarked. This is simply based on what we know the software can do at scale. Solely, right? This is not out of line with what Ethereum and Binance do. And Binance has validators. Ethereum has its miners. So these things are subjective, and Binance has, in my opinion, a vastly higher clearing time than Ethereum does. But Ethereum is bloated with DeFi and NFTs and things like that. So one of the first big, huge NFT projects for Ethereum was CryptoKitties, and now they're inundated with projects that are way bigger than that. That caused a lot of bloat, and that's why we have all that gas issue with Ethereum. Oh, here we are on BSC, and we don't have such a gas issue. This is a simple config setting. Not a lot of people talk about this, but the difference between it's like BSC is a fucking fork of Ethereum. We shouldn't be celebrating it. I don't even think they should celebrate it. The fact that their network keeps coming down is a testament to that. That the cost to become a node or validator is too high. for them to reliably process transactions. But, I want to be cool with CZ, so I don't want to talk too much shit. The goal of the Safemoon blockchain was to prevent situations like I just brought up with Ethereum and with BSC. So with regard to the transaction count, it's actually never been tested. So we have no idea. It's just a test. Like the thing that I can speak on is the testnet that I worked with, which was fairly non-consequential. That testnet itself could be made into a mainnet. But as I said in some tweets I think earlier today, nobody should expect a testnet to be ready for production. That's why it's a testnet. However, a testnet, like I said earlier also, is the perfect smorgasbord for any kind of innovation that you want to apply to any kind of mechanic that you want to apply to that chain. You can do it at that point. I have no fucking idea. Nobody has any idea.
I mean, that all being said, you're very confident in the blockchain that Safemoon's going to have, correct?
I'm confident in that it's been committed to. The code exists. It can be modified. And this path that I've set, and I've spoken to Ryan about it before, exactly how it should be done. And this was like a light conversation that we had with regard to a certain direction that I wanted to go with another goal that I had been given. So, yeah.
I mean, if you want to have your own Papa coin on it at some point, I'd say you're fairly confident in it, right?
Yeah, of course. If the iteration that comes out allows for tokens, which I would be very optimistic about, I'll
Sure.
put a Papa coin.
Oh yeah,
For sure.
I got guys now that are kind of like, well, they were DMing me, oh, it's not 3,000 simultaneous transactions per second, but it doesn't need that to be really powerful and successful, is what you're saying, right?
It doesn't. No.
Got it, man. I was just trying to clarify everything for everybody.
Oh, Chris.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, you're confident in the blockchain. You're confident in what you built. What ramifications does the Safemoon blockchain have for all other cryptocurrencies?
I think that the Safemoon blockchain would pose about as much risk as any other chain would to any other chain. They all exist on different network IDs, at least with regard to Ethereum forks. And then you have Bitcoin and all these other crazy forks of Bitcoin and different kind of consensus models with EOS and IOTA and other examples. I don't see any of these as competing. They only compete on the layer 2, the place that uses these services. The services are never in competition with each other on the layer 1. So
they're all working together, is what you're saying, then.
Yeah. I mean, 3% of the populace. I keep saying it, right? If there's only 3% of the people that are involved, there's a 97% certainty that you'll have more people. So for what we have right now, I think like the blockchains that exist are sufficient for the amount of people that, like, just barely sufficient for the people that exist inside the space now. So something has to come out that scales well beyond that, and you will find activity in that direction. I don't think that any one chain will ever be a killer to any of the other chains, because if you have 2 nodes, if you have 2 participants, you won't kill a chain. because in the end of the day, like, I mean, so if you want to talk about the death of value, that's a certainty that can happen to anything. But as far as operability of a network, if you have two nodes, the balances can still be query, or even one, really. But that one alone cannot come to consensus with itself. So that one can perform the 51% attack, ironically. But
Do you see a lot of projects joining Safemoon's exchange, like really successful projects?
sure, yeah. You'll see that a lot with any smart chain that comes out. CRO, for example, I've seen a bunch of people expose interest with starting AMMs over there. Yeah, and anybody who has any kind of brain inside their head would consider, like, if they're in the space with us and they provide dApps and shit like that. Honestly, like, including Safemoon is a smart idea. Including Safemoon comes with a flood of volume, no matter what it is. So, you know, as you see more services come online, I think it makes absolute sense. Like, so Safemoon Swap, for example, it is like it uses multiple swap contracts within itself. It's pretty fucking cool. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's never really happened before, right? That I could
no,
think of. Not that much.
not really. I mean, the contract code existed before, but if you look at the history of things, Safemoon is the one that didn't rug, despite the market going down. Safemoon didn't rug. You know, there's still backing. It's pretty good. I love that.
Let's see here. Let's go to Nick. Go ahead, Nick.
Hey Chris, thanks for having me. Hi Thomas, I have a question for you. I think you probably know who I am anyway. I'm part of another project, but I have a question that I think will probably be interesting to the SafeMoon army as well. So back a few months ago, we had an issue with the contract, and so we made a modification to the contract to, well, not to the contract, but to really include the burner wallet to receive reflections. And we found, so that was an issue that we publicly addressed, and we found a solution for it. But what's happening is that we were expecting the committee was on board with that, of course, and we were expecting the reflections to start from that time on to, you know, so anytime there would be a transaction, then the reflection will go to the burn wallet as well, and then the rest of the community. But it just turned out that as soon as we made the change, everything, so it pretty much started from the beginning. So we just put the burn wallet, included the burn wallet, and then all of the, pretty much everybody was affected by that, right? So all the reflections kind of recalculated. And my question really is related to V2. Now that there's going to be a new contract, people are going to be migrating to that new contract. Can you, I'm not sure if you can actually share, but do you think that the new contract will allow to mitigate that problem too, if, for example, the team decides to add a brand, like a big wallet, like a burn wallet at some point in the future, that at least that, well, I call it a bug, but at least that would be actually fixed, or it will not happen.
I'm sure. Like, I'm not sure I understand that question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's yeah. So it's so Elongate. We do have a contract. Pretty much we copied it from that was before I joined the team from
Real
SafeMoon. Yeah.
quick, Nick,
Yeah. Go
not to
ahead.
interrupt. Are you talking about when the reflections stopped going to the liquidity pool? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about so as soon as we we made the change to our contract and added the burn wallet to receive reflections, then everything was pretty much recalculated. So if you were a regular holder, your past reflections kind of dropped down, right? So that's why everybody got surprised and said, "Hey, listen, why do I no longer receive it? Well, why my reflections went down?" It's really a weird bug that we found out, and it's a public thing. We put it on our public forum. Everybody is aware of that, but it was a bug with the contract, and I was just wondering if the team was prepared for something like this for V2.
Yeah, so I still don't understand what the question is.
No, it's fine. It's okay. And I know it's a heavy question. It's a bug thing, so I get it. It's late. It's 3 a.m. So I completely get it. If you want, right?
Yeah, if you
Offline, I
want to
can.
write it out to me, that's fine, and then
Yeah,
tweet out whatever my response is.
yeah. How can I get in touch with you?
Right here on Twitter is good. I'll follow you.
I didn't understand it either. I'm sorry, Nick. I just didn't, and I
Yeah.
don't think he did. So I mean,
No, that's fine. It's a big problem that we face. We found an issue. It was public. It's on the forum, Elongate forum. But that's something that was interesting. That first of all, we were the very first one to deal with this problem, and we were, I was just wondering if there was a fix for that. But anyway, I will.
Oh yeah, for sure. If there's a fix for something,
Yeah.
that's all I do is spend time with edge cases.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, Chris, thank you very much for having me. Thomas, great talking to you, and we'll chat with you soon.
sure. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Who else has a question for Papa that's up here? Guys, just a heads up. I'm going to end this in about 10 minutes. Not because I want to, but I got to get some sleep too. And I'm sure Papa's okay with it. I do go to work tomorrow, believe it or not. So let's go to, give me 1 second here. Let's go to, I'm going to bring somebody up here for you. Let's go to DeFi Cry. He's coming up right now. Go ahead, DeFi Cry.
Thanks for bringing me up. And Papa, I'd like to say I'm tired of seeing you in a room with check marks without a check mark. So when Papa check mark, man. So
Me too, man. Me too.
yeah, dude. I mean, literally, I see like a bunch of check marks in every room you're in, and it's crazy. So
Hey, look,
go ahead.
bro. They keep saying I'm not notable, but I'm telling you, if they tell me that one more time, I'm gonna start a new Twitter.
Oh man, that's crazy. But anyway, hey, so quick question. You mentioned regulation in the past, and kind of your disdain for it, and and the way the kind of U.S. government, you saw some of the transaction limits and them trying to track crypto, the way they're clamping down on DeFi. It's pretty crazy. So, in Wyoming and Utah and a couple other legislators are trying to make things friendly for crypto. I know in New Hampshire, you got a lot of like Bitcoin OGs up there, like some of the original Bitcoin investors in your state. And honestly, I think there's an organization up there, the Free State Project, who is kind of tied with them. Yeah, they're actually infiltrating the government up in New Hampshire. So I'm wondering, like, are you trying? Serious, man, and are you trying to work with the New Hampshire legislators? They got like a very interesting government layout in New Hampshire on it's a little more people oriented, the amount of legislators and how much they get paid. I think they'd be very friendly to it. Are you trying to work with them to create like a crypto haven somewhere like Puerto Rico where they can legislate and create a place where some of these crypto organizations and LLCs can come and be friendly? And thanks for taking my question, bro.
That is one of the most fantastic questions I've had. Yes. So every single politician that New Hampshire has had, even on the local level, like that super local, our reps, I'll send them emails and they're not even just their normal email because I know they don't check that stuff. They have staff do that. But decision makers in their parties, the people that pay them, I'm emailing them and I'm asking them what their stance on crypto is, and I'm reminding them that, and it reminding them somewhat effectively that any kind of legislation against online gambling in New Hampshire is toxic because of Bitcoin. We have more Bitcoin. We have more like quiet Bitcoin users here per mile than anywhere else in the world. But you don't see a lot of adoption in our shops, and part of the reason is shit like DraftKings and DraftKings, clones that accept crypto for sports bets. This huge, giant fucking industry here, but only because it's politically toxic to even talk about it. As soon as they start talking about it, they're done. And what's weird is I almost never get a response, but I do sometimes. What's really interesting is Sununu seems pretty open to crypto. So I haven't really latched on to any one political person here. But as far as advocacy with regard to protecting crypto and making sure that politicians understand what it is that they're stepping into when they step into it, New Hampshire is the live free or die state. It's part of the reason why I go so hard and I try to be myself while I'm doing it is I don't give a shit. People don't think I'm professional, right? In the end, I'm still bringing these $100 million deals because it's the other people on the other side of that bench feel the same way. They don't want to be in a fucking meeting with anybody at that scale, so they might as well be comfortable with the people that they're talking to, and that they can bring the value to the table. So, with regard to New Hampshire, there are more fucking people in the Safemoon army than live in New Hampshire. So if we want to start affecting laws, we want to start making things right for crypto, we can do that if we get together on some stuff. But yeah, I'm always reaching out. Actually, I was most effective with one of Sununu's competitors here locally, Steve Marchand. He connected me with Andrew Yang, and he just launched his Forward Party thing, which is pretty cool. But I'm not here to show political parties, right? In friction, in the specific fraction of DeFi that we exist in, it's all about frictionless yield. It's not really staking. And I'm sure plenty of us stake too. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not going to lock up my fucking tokens for years. I want my spending power now. And that's what frictionless yield is all about. It's, people are able to use what they have immediately. But also, the very fact that you get to hold means you are part of the grand experiment that is UBI, right? And nobody's truly solved UBI. No one will ever truly solve UBI. It'll be more of a BI, where it's basic income, where certain people who exist under certain thresholds, and that's the only way that can work. So yeah, with political advocacy in New Hampshire and that sort of thing is I've never reached out to the FSP, the Free State Project. I know that there's a huge libertarian movement here, but I've always been independent. The libertarian candidates are always unwieldy. They want to abolish the federal government and all this other shit. It will not be possible for them to succeed with language like that. It's just not going to work. You can have all the best ideals ever, but if you get up on a stage and you're like, I'm going to fucking abolish, let's get rid of the SEC and the Treasury. Fuck it, let's go. Right? LFG, right? you're going to be stopped. It's just the reality. All of us can be super hype about it. You're just going to be stopped if you're politicians. Over. Because it's about the macro. It's we exist in the tiny bubble of what finance is. That is, another bubble of what just people are. So yeah, with New Hampshire and crypto and bringing things forward, if fuck it, if New Hampshire politics ever get to a point where crypto becomes one of the overhauling finance, if that becomes a priority for the state, you bet your ass I'll run for government. But like,
That's
Hey,
yeah,
awesome.
Papa
always
Papa
reaching
for
out.
New Hampshire governor. I'll support you, bro. Thanks for answering my question. That's awesome.
Of course, yeah. Sorry for the rant, guys.
No, that's good. We're gonna have one last question, Kenyatta, and then we're gonna end the space. Go ahead, Kenyatta.
Hey, Papa, what's going on?
Yeah.
It's an honor to share the stage with you. Personal question. How does it feel knowing that something that came out of your genius, your creativity, something that was born out of you, has the potential of changing the lives of so many people?
It's fucking crazy. It's wild, right? Anybody who's on like anybody on the Safemoon team contributed to the lives that have already been changed. Leading up to like I feel like the testimonials channel hit its peak maybe a month after April. Like even after the down, right? We're still getting massive. The, people took profits, right? And then they put their testimonials in. And like I've always said this is I'm having a bad day, even though I've left Satan on the team level, right? And I'm joining you in the community. I go to the testimonials channel still because we fucking did that for people. People living in trailers now have homes. It's that kind of shit is moving to me. That the amount of hate that I get is nothing compared to the lives. The people that have opportunities now, they would never otherwise have because they took a risk on us. Right now, I feel like I'm before when I was with Safemoon, I felt like I was gatekeeping what I knew. So I feel like Safemoon may be in a better position now that I'm outside because I can come out here and I can explain things to you that are presented in a way from a consumer's perspective. I know exactly what it is that they're doing, and I can share this in a way that people don't get scared, people don't get freaked out. We're here for a ride. Shit happens in the market, right? But you have a team in front of you that is willing to innovate despite the market. That's a fundamental in any crypto investment. Fucking financial advice. I don't give a shit. Like right there, if you have a team that is willing to continue despite the market, if you're about technology at all, if you invest in people at all, you know, the shit's moving, and it can't ever be understated or it can't ever be stopped. That's how I feel about it.
I think you made that abundantly clear, man. I want to thank you for coming on. You're welcome here anytime. It's excellent to always talk to you, and we'll be here after dark, man. Anything else you wanted to add before we end?
Be well. Take care of your health. I think that's it.
You're a funny guy, man. Take care of yourself too, man. We
I'm
all
gonna
want
trust
you to
you.
be healthy. What's that?
I'm gonna trust you.
You do, man. DM me anytime, man. Thanks for coming on. We're gonna end the show. We'll have you on again, okay?
Of course, of course.
Thank you, brother. Have a good night.
Good night.